This is David Filippo, the left-handed right-winger again. I was going to do a little series here. It's probably too long. I did it all in one, so I'm going to cut it up and do it little sections at a time. To do what I believe to be the worst to greatest presidents of all time, starting with who I deem the worst and working my way up to the ones I like. And I'm going to say, and some of you may already know this, some of you are like, well, what the hell? But honestly, I am really disappointed in our 44th president, Barack Obama. Yes, in part why I voted for Donald Trump, too, because I was sick of the last 8 years and needed change, and Hillary Clinton would have been a continuation of that. Particularly what I didn't like was largely Obamacare. As far as concerned, I did try to give him a chance. You go to Men's Bill, I did vote for him, embarrassingly, now that I'm looking back on it, in the Massachusetts Democratic primary, back in 2008. Admittedly, I was a Rudy Giuliani guy. He was out, and John McCain pretty much had it at that point. So I was like, well, I might as well put my vote somewhere else, maybe somewhere more useful. So I put it, for Barack Obama, because at the time he seemed better than Hillary Clinton. Mistake. I did end up voting for John McCain, but even though when he lost, I feel this could be something good. So I supported him the first few months of 2009. But quickly, some things started coming out that I kind of liked them a little less and less. And then, particularly by March, when Obamacare passed, I decided I was done. It was probably the worst piece of legislation thrust on the American people, especially the way it was, the lies that were played upon us. Just an example. First it was called a tax. It wasn't a tax, but then the minute it came to the Supreme Court, Obama quickly claimed that it was a tax. Also claimed there wouldn't be a tax penalty, but there turned out to be tax penalties. Told you can keep your doctor, but you couldn't keep your doctor. Told, we're just too stupid to know what's good for us, so we need the government to tell us. Nah, sorry, that doesn't fly with me. I don't like that at all. Yes, you can call us stupid and say we ain't not good for ourselves, but you don't have the right to dictate laws to make us know better. Sorry, it doesn't work. Because I'll be afraid to say there are some dumb people out there, but should they allow to be dumb? Yeah. I have just tried to be dumb as they do. If they can't be dumb, then I can't be dumb either. So, between that, Obamacare really just gave me any chance to. He was already on a downhill path with me. But after that, you get into things like Fast and the Furious, his negligence in Benghazi. He had us in Iraq, Syria, Yemen, Afghanistan, Libya. I wanted to say if we need to go to war, I understand it, but it seemed like he's sending us everywhere. And to be such an anti-war guy, he'll get us out of Iraq, and we didn't really get out of Iraq, did we? Yeah. And of course, ISIS got stronger. So it just doesn't seem like it's working. It worked too well for us. Not to mention for helping us, I paid more out of my taxes while he was president and got very little back on my refund. Like I mentioned in my other video, I only paid 3% last year, and I got 18% back. While he was president, I paid in like maybe 12 to 13%, and maybe got 7 or 8, 9% back. So that doesn't help too much, especially when you're in a lower economic bracket, like many of us are, in the middle class and the poorer levels of the economy, when we might need a little help and get a little more money back in our pockets. No, he decided to keep more of it and give me less of my money back. More like he was doing me a favor. Yeah. I have no use for him, and I'm so glad he's no longer a president. That's in part why I voted for Trump over Hillary Clinton, even though I said I did have my qualms about him. I'm very happy with the tax break, and I'm very glad that she's not our president either. So, with those things, as I've studied a lot of presidents, you'll find I know a lot about him. This is by far the worst I've ever seen, and I can't believe what people were thinking. I kind of simply mentioned that I've studied this, and I think a lot of people vote for the guy they like, who is more likable, who is friendly, who's best looking. I even did a poll. People like people that, I did a poll asking strictly for a person on their looks, the president on their looks, not on their what you know about the record. Look strictly on the looks, and it was interesting that every time, typically the candidate that won the office in every election is the same person that won on the looks contest. A couple times it was kind of close. A couple times it was the other person did win, but most of the time it was the good-looking guy that always won. And it's interesting the way the cards will crumble too. But we can talk more about that in another video. My next person that falls on this list, not much to list off, but he kind of falls in another group of people that I want to do more of a close series on, which are kind of the next group of kind of worst presidents. But we'll talk about in the next series, and it's largely thing he did was the Federal Reserve. Which kind of, in many ways, I think paved the way for a lot of the economic trouble we have now. Namely, inflation has been out of control since the Federal Reserve. I mean, I did the math. I mean, prices have increased steadily over 100% since 1913 when the Federal Reserve was enacted. And it hasn't really helped. It hasn't really helped anybody. I mean, made things cost more, put more money in the currency, devalued our currency. It hurt us more when we lost the gold standard. It's just we're not really getting much help. We're not really getting much help. And not to mention, it's arguably it also may have been more, some people say it was more Calvin Coolidge, but no, a lot of people tell you too, it's the existence of the Federal Reserve that paved the way for the Depression. So, and also I'm not a fan of the United Nations, and also being the predecessor of that would be Wilson's League of Nations, because I don't think we need to be dictated by another entity. You know, it's our country first, and we can come to agreements with other countries, but I don't think we need to be on a set of laws that that put the nations united together, because sometimes we have to put our own interests first. Wilson just paved the way for pretty much the presidency of Obama and every Democrat since. I mean, the Democrats of the 20th century were probably the worst. As you'll know, mentioned that there's a few Democrats of the 19th century, or rather, the 19th century, that I give some decent marks to. Not great marks, but I give decent marks to for where they stood and some of the policies they stood for. We'll come more about that, but and Wilson started it all, of this nightmare of Democratic presidents for the 20th century. So you kind of got to hit it hard on the guy that caused all the problems. And then nextly is interesting enough, he is the next guy, Andrew Johnson. He is a Democrat by nature, although he ran with a Republican ticket, even though it was called the Union Party, National Union Party, during Abraham Lincoln's re-election in 1864. Unfortunately, Lincoln was assassinated, and Johnson became president. It's debatable. Sometimes I go back and forth whether or not he was acting in Lincoln's interest, because Lincoln didn't really want to see any more bloodshed. He didn't want to see the South punished. But you could argue Johnson gave a bit much of a free pass to the recently the Southern states rejoining the Union, and some could argue too it kind of paved the way for the rise of the Ku Klux Klan, and just created a lot of harm and danger for a lot of the newly free slaves and probably anybody else living down there. So not really a good president. Definitely, clearly a racist if you read about him. Not a great guy, and it's just not a great person to be in the White House. So you're getting into largely more of a character description I'm giving on him as a person, and what he stood for and what he tried to pass. Luckily, I don't know if I agree with all their policies, but there was the radical Republican-controlled Congress kind of blocked a lot of his legislation. They had enough power. They were often able to override vetoes, and that's also part how they used their veto majority to help get him impeached. They weren't able to remove him. The Senate failed to remove him from office. But he was pretty bad. He was pretty bad. For what he stood for. Luckily, we got, and I'll talk about him later, Ulysses Grant. Shortly after, who, interesting enough, was kind of rated as one of the worst. Although I don't know. I find a lot of good came out of it, despite some of the foibles that were going on. But we'll come to that later. Tune in next when we go on to the next batch. So that was, if we go in reverse, that was, well, like Grover Cleveland put the wrench in this because he's the 22nd or the 24th president. But to go backwards, Obama being number 43, Wilson being 42, and Andrew Johnson being 41. We have 40 to go. And I'll post another video shortly. Kind of the next batch of awful presidents. And eventually they'll become the better ones down the line as we go. Talk to you later. Bye.